Welcome to The Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee. And today, I'm in conversation with a dance artist, teacher, choreographer, born and raised in Richmond, Virginia. Please welcome Anastasia Johnson.
Hello, hello.
So thank you for coming on, and we're here. We're making it happen on a Tuesday. We're recording this, not a Monday. If it was a Monday, it's just what do you got?
Right. Facts. Big facts.
So, before we get too deep into it, I want to invite you to do something that's either going to be nerve-wracking or something that could take up the entire podcast. Share your story. What is your story? Tell us about you. Where'd you grow up? And maybe what was your first experience with dance or performance?
Yeah. So, like you said, I'm from Richmond, Virginia. Henrico County to be exact, for those who are from that Richmond area and knows about that. I pretty much was dancing growing up all through and through. Very into the educational side of things as well. My mom was a daycare provider, so I grew up with the daycare in our household. So we had the neighborhood house, like everybody was there all the time. I have a lot of nieces and nephews, big family, so I'm used to being around people all the time. So that was definitely a huge part of my childhood. Going to church, going to grandma's house, all the cousins in the world. That type of a deal was more so like how I grew up again. But I was dancing like all the time. It was something that I just deemed fun. So I just kind of did it all the time. I was very good at like picking up choreo off of videos, and I was a huge Disney kid. So like the girls knew choreography from beginning to end. Yeah. So it was more so just like me just wanting to be a Disney kid, to be honest.
I love it. Yeah. Some of those things I remember growing up. I didn't want to be a Disney kid. I wanted to be a Power Ranger, I guess. It's like, how can I get into a fight and do highly choreographed martial arts that none of the people actually are doing? These are videos from other things, but some of those childhood things we actually revisit when we get older, and we as adults find a way to turn it into more of a creative outlet, and it has these sort of things where it's education. It could be a business. It's the adult version of what we were doing as kids.
Yeah, for sure. And I was definitely like a natural hip hop dancer too. So like when people were at parties to actually dance battle, that was my scene. Like I felt so seen. So like people don't even do that anymore at parties. Like the dance battles, all that. That was my childhood for sure.
Now, you're giving me more rapid fire questions because I just took one down based on what you said there. It's going to come back to haunt you, just so you know.
Love it.
So, I was kind of touching on a little bit a moment ago. Tell us about AJ Collabs. Let's learn a little bit about that.
Yeah, so AJ Collab is my dance company. We kind of focus on shedding light on different like social injustices to marginalized communities and things like that, especially to Black folks, but doing that through like dance education, collaboration, community engagement, performances, things like that. So finding ways to connect to people to talk about issues that maybe not everybody is talking about, how movement plays a part in that, how art in general plays a part in that. Yeah.
So, and I'm skipping ahead because I have a question that definitely keys in on what you just mentioned there. So, like movement and performance, at least from my understanding, I have two left feet or two right feet. I don't know how it goes. I can't bust a move.
It's two left, but everybody can move. Everybody might not call themselves a dancer, but everybody's a mover. And
I am a mover. I'm a mover and a shaker.
Okay.
Yeah. See. So, but I find that it has a connection to emotion, right? At least that's my understanding. What feelings do you often find the sort of work that you're doing with the collaborations, the work that you're doing just in, because I see, artistic director, I see a lot of different things that are there. What sort of emotions are connected like with your work? Like, in thinking of something more recent, because I know there's a lot of stuff. You're like, well, sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's sadness. So thinking about something recent. Yeah.
I think it definitely shifts often. I definitely think it plays a part into what my intention is for moving. Is it just for fun? Is it just to have joy and just to have my body moving? Is it a healing practice? Am
Mm.
I doing it to just like calm my anxiety? Am I doing it to just like be one with the music? Like, so it definitely shifts about like the intention of how I'm moving to how I'm feeling. But at this point, I'm really interested into finding the joy aspect of this practice where I am right now. I'm refinding the joy in it. I think I've like so many years of like being in school. I went to performing arts high school,
Yeah.
did dance in college, and things like that. And then you get into the real world, you're just like, okay, I need to make money. I need to be a dancer. But like, I don't want to lose having the actual fun. Like that kid that I was at a dance battle. I don't want to lose that joy of being that kid. Um, and my love for dance in that way. So I'm really focusing on finding the joy again right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think being able to have that joy, that reason, that purpose, if you will, it's like this is why I do it. And with I look at, sometimes when I first schedule an interview with someone versus when this interview actually happens, how many interviews have I done between those? And I'm like, oh wow, there's a lot since like probably when we talked initially. It was like,
Yeah.
here's 300 interviews. Now I'm at 450. And, with a lot of stuff going on, it's trying not to, and it's not quite the same, but I'm sure there's a connection in with it, trying to be able to connect what I'm doing to being my art form, my practice versus it being creating content, because those are
Mhm.
two very different things.
Right. Right.
So definitely, feeling the love and the reasoning behind why you do a particular creative practice. And, there's always this sort of question on how's this going to get funded and all of that, which,
Hello.
oof,
Where is the money?
yeah, where's the money? Where are the resources? And, so tell me about that. Like, how does that work for you? Like, how do you kind of navigate, keeping the love for it while trying to have that sort of business, that more professional structure around something that, as a creator and as a person that's done this for a long time, that's like, I love this. This is my baby. This pursuit is mine versus, all right, I'm going to get this funded. I need to rent this space. I need to, yeah.
Yeah, it's also like setting the people around you in a certain way. Like I feel like the people around me have that understanding and that support, and we're like aligned in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very cautious about like the people that I'm working with and the people that I'm like entering into my artistic practices. Just because as many artists are, like they're very, protective over their art. So I don't really kind of want to just throw it away to everybody. Like when I'm ready for that presentation aspect of it, yes, sure. But that doesn't always have that same feel in like the practicing of it, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. So I think the people around me definitely have a huge part in it. Like if they believe in what I'm doing and what I'm creating, they're more than happy to help. They're more happy to give me to other people or to help me network or to give me advice or to sit in on my rehearsals and give me feedback and things like that. So I think the community that I'm curating around myself is a huge part
Yeah.
of keeping that like that level headedness and not getting too heady about like the business side of things.
Yeah. Yeah. And no, I like that. I like it's, when you get into a creative environment, you're around other creatives or other people that are helping move and they get it,
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm always super appreciative of people investing the time and doing this. And it's like, okay, you're here, you want to do it. So right there, some of those early things are already done. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Of like trying to convince you this is worth your time or this conversation is going to be interesting. So we're already there. We're already agreeing to do it. So
Exactly.
naturally there's a good energy, it's a creative sort of energy and exchange that's happening. We're not in the same space obviously at this point because we're recording through Zoom, but when people are in the same room and I'm doing this in the same room, it's just like, wow, it's all of this creative juice just in here.
Going, yeah, exactly. I feel that for sure.
I'm going to go back to a question that I realized I've skipped, but I want to get a sense of like place, right? So what is it about your city? You mentioned proudly Richmond, Virginia. Uh, what is it about your city, or in this case, sort of like region as well? Because, DMV, Virginia is a part of that, obviously. How does it inspire your art? Like, talk about, some of the, like, I guess the dance scene down there, the creative scene in Richmond and DMV, and how is that like, influential to what you do, and how does it serve what you do as a creator?
Yeah, so I have relocated. I'm in PG County right now, so I have relocated. I would say the art scene in Richmond is growing, but it wasn't at the pace that I wanted it to be at the space that I was in at the time. So
Sure.
I decided to relocate up here. I work in DC, but I do a lot of my artwork in both DC and Maryland. Um, I think this area is so interesting because one, it's open to a lot. I feel like it allows you to just kind of put ideas out there and you can kind of find your niche, your different groups of people
Yeah.
and things like that, which is really, really cool because you can kind of just like, oh, you're into that or you're into this kind of art. All right. Let's kind of build on that. So it's really cool in that way because it doesn't really feel very limiting. Um, so I think that's a little bit more freedom is what I feel
Mhm.
in this area than I feel like I might would have had staying in Richmond.
I get you. Yeah. When you're going to, because there's this idea into this book called Death of an Artist, and they talk about like the centers, right? The art centers. Like if you want to do this, you got to go to Chicago, LA, New York.
Yeah, yeah, right.
And it's definitely a size and scope thing. And I struggle with it at times of, in conversations with people, because I always like put on for your city, do it in this place, make it happen. But also sometimes it's like the infrastructure and the resources, or even in some instances, working in, I guess, a choreographer sort of capacity, they may not have the dance talent that's there that you're looking to work with or looking to collaborate, or you may want to do choreography for, let's say, theater or something in that respect, and it's not a huge theater scene in the space where you may be at. So
Mhm.
being able to kind of leave and maybe use that sort of thing to bring it back home is a thing as well.
Yeah, 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 for sure.
So talk to me about, like, because you're multi hyphenate is one of those things, and I know it's a thing that's thrown around. Like I do everything,
Right.
and that's the way I'm going to put it. When I write this bio up, it's like everything. So describe like what you would say your top three responsibilities are, because you have the education side of it, you have the choreography, you have the dance, and being an artist in your own respect and facilitating folks and experiencing their art. So tell me about those like responsibilities. What do they look like for you on a day to day?
Yeah, I would say um overall I consider myself an educator. So everything I feel like feeds into how can this become a learning process in some way, shape, or form. So whether that is through like community engagement or performances and things like that, it's a form of sharing knowledge.
Yeah.
So I would say that that plays a huge part in it. Day to day, it's a great question, but it's more so kind of fine tuning what I want that message or so to be. I feel like I'm still shifting and altering what my artistic voice is
Yeah.
and what I'm really trying to get across, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. I think that I'm still very early on in my range of that. My company is 3 years old, going on 4 years in February. So I feel like I'm still fairly new to this artistic director scene. So yeah, it's still very fresh.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But I like that. I like that. And from what I'm saying, like, and what I've heard so far from you, the impression I get is it's not anything that's really set in stone. It's just like it could be this, but also I'm not against this as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's some space that's there. Like it's a part of me that like, okay, I want to fine tune this and have this clear language, right?
Yeah.
Meant for grants. But also but also I'm like, I just want to make the art that I want to make. If you rock with it, you rock with it. If you don't, you don't. And that's what it's gonna be,
Yeah.
period. Like so that's a huge part of it too. Like, don't label me though. Don't do that. So
No, I like that because that's the thing where it's like, how can we put this in a box and the concept on how someone deems art? It's like the iPhone. It's like, well, waiting for that new one to come out where they actually include dance. Because I know that, at least here in Baltimore, I remember listening to, it was one of those grant calls, and one of the people that ran like a small dance company or what have you, their studio, it like be great if you guys start acknowledging dance as an art. And it's left out of the conversation a lot. And even doing this podcast thing, it's really interesting and where that satisfaction comes from, and having people tell you your work is good. I love what you're doing. I appreciate you talking with the different creators and doing your thing and facilitating their thing. But it's not listed as journalism. It's not listed as storytelling. It's like, oh, so I'm trying to write grantees, but it's not quite working out.
and dance is so fascinating in that way because it's people want to label it as one thing, right? Some people want to just make it a recreational thing. Some people
Yeah.
just want to make it an art form. Some people go the sports route and the competition route of things. Like, but all of that is valid. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to act like one doesn't exist without the other. Like, if you specialize in one area of it, that's fine. But dance doesn't have to be this just like one thing, which is why I love it so much because I can explore the different aspects of it
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah, I think it's also the question around like artistic merit or what have you. And I understand from a grant perspective, it's always storytelling. It's
Mm-hmm.
always like, well, I'm gonna paint the reasoning. And it's like, this is my motivation. This is why I do what I do. And, as you kind of touched on earlier, this is my reasoning. I don't know if you guys want from me. This is what it
Right.
is.
This is what it is. I have nothing else for you. Right. Exactly.
So as far as where you're at, and maybe this takes in some stuff outside of dance, but as a creative, what are three truths that guide you in your work, what have you? Like this is the truth in his art. So I like to ask this sort of question, and I'll say, in an attempt to pad here, so you can have a moment to think about it, because I know it's a
Mm-hmm.
weighty question. I think for me, like when I look at truth, it's just like, I've been working on a speech about this recently, so it's really top of mind. Of like, the person that's telling the truth is sometimes they're the most hated person, but they have to do the dirty work. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, I wish you didn't say that way, but is it valid? Is it true? Is it real? This idea that the truth is multifaceted. You know what I mean? Like, your truth through your lived experience is going to be different from mine. So there are some points where we intersect, but just because we have a similar shade, if you will, and from a similar
Yeah.
part of the country, but at the same time, there would be things that you've experienced. And the key thing for me is, and I think for a lot of people I'd invite to do, don't diminish what someone else's story and someone else's truth is. And lastly, it's I think you only owe the world truth. What your truth is. That's all you owe. I don't need money. I don't need rewards. I just need to be able to have the capacity to share the truth. Those are the things that I think that try to guide me in how I approach this sort of podcast and this sort of work that I'm doing here.
Um, one truth. One truth about my art is that it is personal. It
Mm.
is my art shares stories of me, ideas of me, emotions of me, and things like that. So my art is definitely a reflection of who I am. I would say another truth is that collaboration is essential.
Mm.
That is, if you ever worked with me in that space, you would be like, okay, so what we doing? what we doing. So it's definitely a collaboration, which is why AJ collabs. I made it very clear about what I want my practice to be like. We are in this together.
It's more of a verb than a name, if anything. Like, I collab.
Yeah. um, and a third truth. I can't think of a third one right now.
TBA.
But
TBA,
yeah,
I think.
yeah, but those two feel good.
Yeah, it's an interesting exercise to do. It really kind of, I think it helps us and reminds us what's the most important part of what we're doing and like why we're doing it. You know, some people will say it's your North Star. It's like, less of that. That feels corporate, but you know, it's that. So why is dance such a powerful form of cultural expression? Because I mean, you know, despite my comment earlier about my left feet, you know, comparatively, I feel like, you know, my melanin, my blackness enables me to have a certain rhythm, if you will, so, and I express myself culturally. So
Look at
what?
you.
Why is it
I've
a?
met Black people with no rhythm, honey. It's okay. It exists. It is out there. Trust and believe.
It's on a curve, though. It's on a curve. Like my comparative is like, all right, I don't think you got it, bro. I got a little bit more, just enough more than you.
It's definitely a curve. Um, it's part of culture in general.
Mhm.
Like it's just so like even the social aspect of like how I was saying, like the different aspects of dance, like whether that be athletic or art or whatever, but like just the social aspect of it and how it brings people together and the collaboration that it has with music and dance and how it elevates just so many experiences and things like that. Like you can be at a cookout, a certain song come on, and automatically a communion of people have a similar movement in such a way, right?
Yeah.
Um, this is why, like, similar to like how Michael Jackson became so famous globally because of this, like, even though everybody didn't know the language that he was singing his songs, but people had that movement and that music together that kind of just spread like wildfire.
Yeah.
So it just has a sense, it automatically can bring a sense of community, which is why in a lot of dance practices, definitely of people of cultures that is not American, like a circle is so powerful in dance because of that community aspect and that like infinity, like non-ending
Yeah.
space and things like that. So it can bring a sense of community, which again, you don't have to consider yourself a dancer, but everybody is a mover. Movement is so healing. Like it's just so healing.
No, I love that. And I think you just helped me realize why whenever the song for the wobble comes on, I got no moves for it. I just kind of go to the side. I just descend. It's like I didn't get that memo, but I appreciate everyone doing it. It's like, man, y'all do that. Y'all go. Y'all got it.
But it's always that one person you didn't think that had rhythm come out, and you be like, oh, and then just like the aspect of like, oh, okay, I'll teach you as we doing it, like that. People bringing people in, like it's just like it's contagious, you know. Like, so it's beautiful in that way of how movement can just translate.
It's cultural exchange too, where you know people are like, I know what this is. I'm not quite sure. How do I swing my hips with that? How do you how do you stay inspired to create like and to be creative? Because it takes courage, it takes time, energy, and with something as you describing that it's very much you, your emotions are a part of it, your feelings are a part of your personal is a part of it, and not all the time is great. Not all the time is fun. Sometimes it's like, man, I am sick. I've had a bad weekend, going through a breakup and stubbed my toe. How do stay inspired to create in those moments where your cup is a lot less full? I mean, a lot less full than empty. You know, like you got nothing. You got very minimal. How do you stay inspired?
I think one, I try not to force myself to do that just for others. Like, I think it was a point in time when I was just like, okay, I got to make this choreo all the time. I got to put out a project. I got to do this. But now I'm like, if I'm not feeling it and nothing is really pushing me in that way, I'm not going to force myself to make a project just to make a project when I'm not committed to the project.
Yeah.
Because I'm also like, I don't want to put out anything that's just like crap. Like, I don't want that. So, and again, like I said, I want my art to be truly a reflection of me in
Mhm.
some way, shape, or form. So if I'm not putting my all into it, then I'm just like, yeah, no, it's a no for me. Um, but then also when it comes to this collaboration idea too, it's more so how am I feeding off of the people that I'm working with, and the people that are around me. I used to teach public school, but even in different practices, when I teach like non-dancers, they are very shy at times, right? So it may you be like, how am I going to make a piece on these people that don't really know how to do much? But right, but again, they have sense of different types of movements. So sometimes, like even if I'm like in a work welcome circle, is what I like to call it, and we're just introducing ourselves, and I'm like, okay, give me a movement in your name, and they'll go like this. I'm like, oh, so now we're just gonna move into it. So you're taking something and now you're just like making it a little fun and things like that. So it's more so just kind of taking little bits of like the people that are surround you to make them feel included, to be like, oh, I played a part in this like thing that we did. So other people definitely inspire me and how they move because they're ready to move like me. And I think that's interesting. I'm like, okay, how did you do that? Explain to me how you like. And so I'm just nerdy in that way when it comes to like figuring out how other people function.
No, I like it. I like learning about folks' processes and like how do they go about like just being in it because we have this sense of we don't show the work, we don't show what goes into it, we just like show the end result. Where we have that again that content versus art sort of thing.
Mhm.
Art, you're in the weeds, you're in there kind of like doing all of this, trying to figure out, trying to work into it, and you know that sort of trust, that sort of collaboration. I would imagine there are times where I'm like, man, this conversation is going to go great. And then the person's like, I don't know how to answer that question. I didn't read your questions, bro. I don't know what to say. And it just goes left. And,
Right.
you try to do your best to make it work. But in the end result, I can edit all of that out too. And it's like, I want to make you and I look great here.
Right. Like, how can I fix this to work? Because it's not working.
In the shortest episode of The Truth in This Art, Rob Lee has a 5-minute conversation. It's like, that's not even a podcast, bro.
Right. What happened here? Like, sorry, I didn't read the question. Sorry.
Or even having this sense because I like to keep the it feels weird to say the magic, but I like to keep that sort of it is an unscripted sort of thing. There's a framework, if you will, but
Right.
if all the answers were scripted, then I start asking different questions because I
Right.
wanted to feel like this is a conversation. And I would imagine it's the same when you're like, I'm not feeling this, let's switch it up. And then the people who've had some experience with dancing, they're going to be like, oh, we're improvising now. This is great.
Right. Because sometimes steps and big movement can seem intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
So how can I meet your world instead of you meeting mine? Because I went to school for this. I have a degree in this, but you did not. So I have to meet your world.
Yeah. I got one last real question for you. And actually two real questions left for you, and then a litany of rapid fire questions because you've been so entertaining and interesting that I now have more questions. So let's talk about kind of stepping outside of what the primary practice might be and, kind of experimenting with other new or different unfamiliar art practices. I don't know if these are our practice, but I've gotten to this sort of spot where I'm doing more MC work and more panel discussions, which it's a lift. It is different and it's uncomfortable at times. But it's very informational. It's like, okay, I need to do this a little bit more or work on your, how you go about it and things of that nature. I'm learning, and I think it impacts how I go about doing this. Like that sort of work, because it's harder, makes this feel a little easier because it's one-to-one. I can give you my undivided attention. So is there a practice that you engage in? Maybe painting. I've heard people that say, I play the guitar and it makes me a better chef somehow. And I'm like, tell me more. So
Right.
what is that for you?
I love the arts in general. So I think having an appreciation for other arts definitely inspire my art.
Sure.
And again, similar to you, like just like learning people processes and how they think and why they make the work that they do. I'm very interested in that as well. So I'm like, oh, tell me more. So now we're just having this deep conversation about art. And I'm like, oh God, this is great. And you know how creatives can get like that sometimes in spaces anyway. So that definitely is something that's of interest to me. And I'm finding that I'm being in more spaces of like just networking and not networking in a way of like, what can I get from you? But networking in like knowing the community around me in a different way. Like that doesn't feel as pressury of like, I want to be in your company and like that type of thing, like that type of feel. It's just more so like, I just want to know your name. I've been seeing you around the area. I just wanted to say hi. So I've been finding that I've been in those spaces more, which feels really nice. That I don't really have to feel the pressure of being like, oh my gosh, they performed in the Kennedy Center. Oh, like I can't talk to them. Like, it doesn't feel I'm getting to know this community in that way. So just talking to people have just been a nice practice that I've been having so far that's kind of outside of like the movement aspect of it.
Yeah.
Because when I first moved here, I was meeting a lot of people in dance classes. So we were talking like post show or something or a thing or post class and things like that. But talking to people on more of a personal level has been a really nice addition to like my art practice and understanding the city. And yeah, it's been really nice.
I like having those sort of uncommon or unexpected things that become part of the practice, part of the process. I always like work in audiobooks as part of what I do. Like, and they're usually creative books, usually books about, what does a creative individual think? Like, how does this person go about it? And it's not the traditional, because I think a lot of times when we think of like art books, we think of visual art.
Mm-hmm.
And audiobooks do not lend itself to like, let me describe what this painting looks like. It's like, all right, we're still in the same chapter, bro. Can we get through it? So this is the last one I got for you. Last real question. What is that? What would be that number one piece of advice if someone's coming to you and they're interested in going into choreography, going into artistic direction? Basically, they're like, I want to be you. What piece of advice would you give them?
That's an interesting question because I've been mentoring a lot too, which is like another practice that I feel like I've been doing lately. That I feel like I'm mentoring others. Oh wow, okay. Um, I definitely express the joy aspect that I talked about at the beginning to them. Definitely if they're like coming straight out of undergrad,
Sure.
because coming out of undergrad is just like, oh my gosh, like I gotta make money, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta, what city am I gonna move to? And I'm just like, don't lose the joy. Because if you get stuck in the whole idea of what you think an artist life is, you will be disappointed. Like you will be disappointed. Anybody out here freelancing will tell you you will be disappointed if you think you're gonna come in here with one thing and leave out with another. That's not how this is gonna work. so so remember why you want to do this. If you're doing it just like strictly on the business aspect of things, like it's gonna feel completely different to you. So just don't lose the joy.
Thank you. That's good. I was thinking there for a second. I was envisioning you for some reason with the locks and saying like, yeah, like the line from Fame. This is where you earn it. It's like, what? All right. So I got a couple rapid fire questions for you. And I always like to preface it. Don't overthink them. They're quick answers. They're ridiculous, but they're quick answers in some instances. They're just ridiculous. All right. What was your nickname when you were younger?
Oh my goodness.
I
Okay, a
know.
lot of people don't know this. But okay, whatever. My nickname was Star.
Okay.
My nickname was Star. Yeah.
All right. That's how I'm going to wrap the show up. All right, Star. It's been real. Superstar. What is the best country you've visited?
I've only been out of the country one time. So I went to London, England. I was there for a month. Had a great time though.
That's great. This is so not too many people know the nickname. So I got another. What is something that most people would not know about you? Hidden talent, for sake of argument.
Random. I went to summer Spanish camp it was weird. I don't know why I went. Like I learned nothing. I went. My mom used to put me in everything. It's her fault, but it's fine. I don't know any Spanish. So.
It's like, I'm bad at Spanish, hidden talent. It's like that two truths and a lie. It's like, what's the lie? I don't know Spanish well.
But I went to the camp.
But I was there though.
I was at the camp, learned nothing, got it. Yeah.
It's like I was a straight A student, mostly based on attendance.
Right.
If you were to add, so now, let's say starting tomorrow, the day is 25 hours. What do you do with the extra hour?
Oh, the extra hour?
Mm-hmm.
My first reaction with the food, I'm like, where I'm eating at? I'm like, where I'm eating at? Oh, man. If I had an extra hour just to like preserve for like a really good meal, I would love that.
It's funny you say that. The next question has to do with food.
Okay.
If someone's like, I need a suggestion on somewhere to go, location doesn't matter. It can be anywhere, but it's something that you really like. It's getting your stamp of approval, that star stamp of approval. Where do you tell them to go? And what do you tell them to have?
Where do I tell them to go?
Like, what did I have for lunch?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know what I'm going to tell them to have. I'm going to tell you to get a seafood boil, but I don't know where I'm going to tell you to get it from. I got to find where to get it from, but like a really good seafood boil. I went to one and I don't remember the name.
Okay. So this is the last one I got for you. I kind of referenced this a little bit earlier. If you were probably paying attention, I referenced this a little bit earlier. What is your favorite dance movie?
Dance movie?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. My childhood one might have been Rise. It was a crumping movie. I don't know. Everybody don't know that movie. If you was a real crumper, you know that movie. And then but
real crumpers only.
Right, real crumpers only. I was one back then, but not anymore. Now I would say I'm debating between like a good Stomp the Yard is more a step, but it's still a version of dance. But Stomp the Yard is a classic, funny one.
Yeah. I mean, because I like to troll a little bit, I definitely got to go, you got to serve, because I want to say this one is for you, Little Saint.
You got to serve. You got to do it for Little Saints. You know what? You know what? You're right. I'm going to give it to you. You're right.
Just for the meme ability of it.
Yeah, you got to do it. You got to do it for Little Saint, for sure.
That's great. That is great. So that's pretty much it for me and all of my questions. I'm going to try to maintain composure here.
I'm also a comedian, if you didn't know.
So I want to thank you for coming on to this podcast. It's been a treat. And I want to invite and encourage you to plug away, shamelessly plug. Tell the folks where to check you out, website, social media. The floor is yours.
Yeah, mostly everything is AJ Collabs. AJ Collabs on Facebook, AJ Collabs on Instagram, AJ Collabs8 at Gmail if you want to hit me up. AJCollabs.com. So AJ Collabs everything.
Well, there you have it. I want to again thank Anastasia Johnson for coming on to the podcast and chopping it up with me. And for Anastasia Johnson, I'm Rob Lee, saying that there's art, culture, dance in and around your neck of the woods. You just got to look for it.